Now, for analysis, let's bring in Thomas Hayes, Chairman and Managing Member at Great Hill Capital. Thomas, thanks for joining us today. So there you go. We've got the bill at least past the Senate. There's a lot of market anticipation before this on the added debt it would put on the U.S., but at the same time, the potential economic boost this could bring to the U.S. economy. For you, how do you weigh those two factors?
Yeah, well, listen, markets climb a wall of worry. We've shifted from focus on tariffs and bombs to tax cuts, growth, and deregulation, and the market likes it. If I didn't know any better from listening to the previews, I would say this is a bad bill. It couldn't be further from the truth. When you have debt to GDP of 121%, 120%, the last thing you can do is cut your way to prosperity. The only thing you can do is grow your way out of the problem like we did in the 1950s, the last time we had debt to GDP of 120%. Within 10 years, we had above trend growth through smart policies, and we brought our debt to GDP down to 63%. The same thing's going to happen right now. You've got a $10,000 deduction on interest on new cars. That's going to create a lot of manufacturing jobs in the auto industry, which volumes have been anemic since COVID. Those are going to skyrocket with the average car on the road now 13.5 years old. Expect new cars to boom. Then you've got this $1,000 account for new babies born between 2024 and 2028. They're going to get $1,000 in basically like an IRA that's going to compound. So by the time they're 18 and 30, they're going to have a significant nest egg. This is a brilliant, innovative idea that's going to set up our next generation for prosperity. You've got the extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Yes, you have some cuts in food stamps. Yes, you have some cuts in Medicaid, which are not ideal, but it's a negotiation, and this is very constructive. I heard the previous speaker talk about the markets were kind of muted. If you owned anything other than the Magnificent Seven, the unmagnificent 493 components of the S&P 500, your portfolio was up massively today. And the reason is because it's going to create a massive amount of jobs for regular working people on Main Street, and the market liked that. If you believed that growth was going to slow, Mag 7 would have been what was up, and it was just the opposite. This is very positive, Sarah.
Yes, I hear your optimism there, Thomas. But what about the massive addition to U.S. government debt as well? How much of a concern is that for you when, the U.S. has had its ratings knocked down, and you can see that uncertainty and that uneasiness in the bond market?
Listen, number one, the 10-year yield is at four and change. So there's no uneasiness in the bond market at present. So that's a non sequitur. As far as the assumptions as it relates to adding to the deficit, it's assuming subpar growth. That assumption could not be further from the truth if you actually understand what's in the bill in terms of spurring job growth, spurring innovation, spurring investment, spurring onshoring and domestic manufacturing. What you find is the assumptions in those projections are incorrect by an agency that's been chronically wrong over the years. So I think you have to keep an open mind that when you have 120% debt to GDP, if you don't have growth, you are on a path to Japan. The only way to fight that situation is to spur massive growth. And the policies in this bill are to spur massive growth. Then you're going to couple that with deregulation in the second half, changing capital requirements for banks, allowing them to lend more, allowing them to hold treasuries, allowing the stable coins with the Genius Act, creating massive demand for U.S. treasuries. You're going to see rates come down. You're going to see a shadow Fed announced by President Trump. If Powell doesn't cut in July, Trump will announce his pick for Fed, and the market will start to discount 200 basis points of cuts, and Powell will be a lame duck until next May.
So given all that, Thomas, that you're excited about, will that potential economic growth translate to market gains, at least for the second half of this year?
What you're going to see is the companies that have lagged behind, the real economy companies that create jobs for middle class are going to boom. But they are a lower weight in the S&P 500. So you have 490 some odd companies that make up 70% of the index, and you have 7 to 10 companies that make up 30 or 40% of the index. So you could see a slightly more subdued return in the general indices because Mag 7 will do less well on a relative basis due to declining earnings growth as a function of increased CapEx. While the 493, you could have many companies doubling in stock price, and the indices may be up much more modestly. So the short answer, Sarah, is it's a stock picker's market, and there's going to be money made in the next 6 months by quality stock pickers that we haven't seen in a long time. Opportunity is here now.
All right. And Thomas, what is your outlook then for the US dollar, which has weakened so far this year?
I think the trend is going to be lower over the next couple of years. I think a decent analog is 2001 to 2004. It had been overvalued relative to fundamentals for some time going into this year. We had a view that the dollar would weaken and it will continue to weaken. You're going to get some counter trend bounces as more and more people get bearish on the dollar now that it's down 10, 11%. I think after those counter trend bounces, it's going to resume the downtrend. And I think you're going to see continued performance. This year, it's been massive outperformance of international equity indices versus US equity indices. I think that trend is going to persist for some time, and most people still are not positioned for it. So expect continued weakening dollar, expect continued great performance of international equities relative to the US. And in the US, those laggard companies, the unmagnificent 493, to dramatically outperform if you're picking the right ones prospectively. So if you're just jammed in US indices, you're going to do okay, but not great. If you have some international exposure and some exposure under the surface in US, you're going to do exceptionally well, in our opinion.
Okay. We'll watch that space. Thomas, appreciate it. Thomas Hayes there of Great Hill Capital. And those are your business updates for this hour. For more, keep up across all of our CNA